The following is CKUW 95.9 FM original spoken word programming created by volunteers in the community, made possible by generous listener support.
Good morning. You're listening to Say It, Sista. It's 8 a.m. We're on CKUW 95.9 FM. I'm Jen Unwin, and I'm joined in the studio today by Merle Ballard. Hi, Merle, and thanks for coming.
Good morning.
Suzanne McCrae on the phone. Okay, joined in studio by
we're Chickadee,
and of course our guest,
Merle Ballard.
Right. Thanks, guys. Today we're going to be talking about the 10th annual 7th Generation Walk for MotherEarth, which is coming up on Sunday. And there's quite a rich history to this event. Suzanne, would you fill us in?
I'd be happy to. The walk started 10 years ago, and it was something that solidarity groups in Winnipeg were asked to do to support the vision of some Indigenous women, including Chickadee, I might add. She's been there since the beginning. And Judy De Silva from Grassy Narrows. This was right around the time that the blockade had just started out in Grassy on the logging blockade there. And Betty Maud, and the women got together and they said, you know, there are these issues happening in every community and they mirror each other, and people don't get a chance to talk to each other often enough about what's going on, and, you know, everybody's wrapped up in their own issue, where we could actually be drawing parallels across communities and raising support for, you know, for folks in the work that they're doing in their home communities. So it started as a sacred walk, and the first year people walked as far as from Grassy Narrows into Winnipeg, and that's like a 3.5-hour drive. So that's a pretty significant statement to, you know, all the people that are doing these walks now. You know, I know they've always taken place, but they've really escalated lately. This, you know, was 10 years ago. And so it was quite a significant event. We met folks at the perimeter and walked in with them to the legislative building, where we held a really big rally and a community meeting for folks from different areas to get together and, you know, and really raise some support and solidarity for each other's concerns. Right on.
Thanks. Merle has to head out at 8:30, so could we talk about what Merle's doing for the walk?
Oh, yes, of course. Well, it has a component of celebration, but also a component of education and sharing information. And as I said, you know, bringing different people together to hear what's going on in their own areas. And Merle has been invited to speak about the flooding, and folks have probably heard about people being relocated into the city with the flooding in St. Martin's and other places. But I think St. Martin's has had some of the most significant impact, and from what I understand, I think there's even still people in the city. And in any case, this is an issue I don't know very much about, and Merle is from the community and is going to share with us what's happened there and what's still happening there and the impact that those things are having.
Okay, take it away, Merle.
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Suzanne. My community, Lake St. Martin, has been flooded continuously for the past, 50 years since the Fifth Dam was built. And 2 years ago, May 8th of 2011, the community was evacuated completely. And the people were evacuated throughout Manitoba. And to this day, the people are still evacuated. And some of the people are still living in hotels in Winnipeg and in hotels throughout Manitoba near the community.
A little catch in the throat there.
Excuse me.
No problem. Don't worry. We
It's
can.
early.
Yeah, it is early. Yeah. Oh, I think it's okay. Merle's got a real scratch in her throat here, but it's pretty tragic.
Some of the other speakers, maybe I'll just tell you briefly.
Sure.
You know,
yeah.
while we have a little pause here, there are 5 Indigenous women speaking at Central Park this year to start the walk between 12:30 and 2. And so the focus this year for the walk, as we choose a theme every year, is the voices of Indigenous women. And let's hope that Merle losing her voice has nothing to do with that. And also in solidarity with Idle No More. So Merle is one of several speakers, and we can sort of fill you in on who the rest of them are after.
Okay, that's great. Chickadee, do you have anything to add here till Merle gets back?
I'm just wondering, since the walk has happened, do you feel that there's been a lot of awareness around the environment?
Well, that ebbs and flows, Chickadee. I think you've been in this, in this movement for long enough that you've seen some of these changes. In the early 90s, there was a lot of awareness about environmental issues. People were really concerned about a lot of things. It was showing in all the polls and in the types of things that you see in the media. And, for example, one of the things people were concerned about then was plastic, and how plastic was a throwaway product. It was creating a lot of toxins, and, we didn't need it. And the plastics industry responded by coming out with a very savvy campaign to convince people that plastic is clean and recyclable, and, pacified a lot of people's concerns. And plastic is really not recyclable. It's downcyclable. So say you buy a yogurt container, you can never make that yogurt container into another food product container again. They break it down and they make it into a new product, like a park bench or, something that doesn't contain food. And, a lot of toxins are also produced when they take the polymers, the plastic components apart in some of these products. Like a ketchup bottle has something like 8 different kinds of polymers in it of plastic. And so the toxins they produce, even with this downcycling process, are also dangerous. But, some of the corporations, I think, got savvy to the idea that people were concerned about it, and the greenwash, what we call greenwash campaigns, became more intense. So I think now the issue is has been more complicated over the years, and people know there's a problem. They don't know who to believe. They come to sources like the Boreal Forest Network that I work for and a few others to get us to sift through the information and tell them what's what. So, I do see lots of concern. People support us with individual donations. We don't get, big funding from, the federal government or anything like that. In fact, they've never given us a dime. So people can trust at least that the sources of information are not biased. And this is the problem. It's simple stuff, and it becomes so complicated that people, need it translated, or they don't know, where to turn for just the straight goods. So I think, yes, the awareness has increased, the concern has increased, but as a response, the corporations have become pretty savvy with their public relations and advertising. And I think now there's a backlash to that. I think we're almost back to where we started from 20 years ago, where people don't believe them anymore. And that's a good thing, in my opinion.
Got ya. We're just going to... Merle's back. She seems to have recovered. Okay, welcome back. Merle, you were beginning to tell us about your community's displacement, and you guys are still displaced. So for 2 years now.
Yes. The community of Lake St. Martin, and that's where I come from, Lake St. Martin First Nation. And the community has been displaced for the past 2 years now. And like I said before my
hack attack.
The community members are still displaced. Some of them are still in hotels in Winnipeg, and some of them are in private accommodations throughout Winnipeg and throughout Manitoba. So the people out there, I guess, need to know of the situation, because a lot of people are not aware that there is an evacuation, in their own backyard. People are displaced. We don't have a community. And if there's displacement, people are displaced, and they start to lose their culture, their identity. They start getting depressed. They start getting sick. All these factors are social factors that start affecting them. And people need to realize what's going on in Manitoba in their own backyards, and we need the support of the people, I guess. This walk that's coming up on April
21st.
Yeah, 21st. And as well, we also have Suzanne talked about, or is going to talk about the women's gathering in May. That's another venue where we need to raise awareness, I guess. We need support. And I'll be encouraging people, too, from Nixon Martin to join the walk in April. Because children, are being traumatized as well. Children don't know how to express their emotions, and that's my main concern is that the future generation, if we don't have a land base, it's going to severely impact the people.
Right. Yeah. And where do things stand now with the community? I know there's been some negotiation regarding resettlement, but how does the community feel? How do the people there feel about the resettlement idea?
The people identified land that they wanted to move to right from the first to the start of the evacuation back in May 2011, and the government has always been reluctant to accept. I don't know why, for some reason, to accept the people's wishes, and the government has been against what the people want. They don't want to support the community's wishes, and the reasoning was that it would be too expensive to build the new community, and it would cost money, to develop the infrastructure. But they put the community in a temporary base, and it cost money to develop the temporary base as well. They had to put in our new infrastructure, and this is a waste of money, to develop a temporary base and then to develop a new community. And I used to argue with the government, why not just start developing the community? It makes more sense to do that.
So what have they spent thus far, in housing the people from Lake St. Martin? What do you think the costs are?
They developed the temporary base where they wanted the community members to move to. I think they set up about 63, 65, I don't know the exact number of modular homes at the temporary site at the old radar base. Mm-hmm. And only about less than 15 of these homes are occupied. And the houses have been sitting empty since last year because nobody wants to move there. Because the community didn't want to move there in the first place, and the government tried to force the people to move there. And I think they paid, I'm not sure the exact numbers, 14 million, I think, for these homes, the temporary homes.
14 million.
Yes.
So now you're looking at people outside their community, and they're being housed in different hotels all over. And it's been for the past, 2 years?
2 years, yes. And another thing, too, is it's very expensive to house people in hotels. I don't know what the hotel rates are, but when you go into hotels, you always see the rates on the door. But those rates on the door, when you book a room yourself, you don't pay those rates, but I'm sure the evacuees get charged those rates that are on the hotel doors, mm-hmm. which is a lot of money. And if you add up the numbers, it gets very expensive. I don't know how much money has been spent already on hotel rooms or private accommodations, but it's very expensive. But it was the government's decision, to flood the community. And they said that it was a natural flood, but it wasn't a natural. It's an artificial flood, because once you start to alter the water logs, if you take them out man takes out the waterlogs, and then you know you you know, man is responsible for the ecosystem and the alteration of the water levels. You know, once you start to alter the water levels, and then it's going to affect the downstream users. And there's been a lot of research that have taken place too, where it's always the marginalized communities that are always impacted downstream wherever these major dams are built, water control structures. Mm-hmm. It's always the marginalized communities that are impacted, in this case, the First Nation communities downstream.
Absolutely. Suzanne, did you have anything you wanted to add right now?
Well, yes, I just wanted to clarify one thing. I believe that, I'm not sure, but Meryl can clarify this, that this flooding took place in order to protect the city from flooding. Am I correct there?
Yes.
Yeah, so essentially, people that live in the cities, we saved ourselves at the expense of other people. And, if this community has a location that they want to move to, surely we should be able to put some pressure on to make that happen.
Well, I agree. The, a community, if you're going to do it right. And if Lake St. Martin has picked a place that they think that they can happily live, and what's the holdup?
Well, this is an action people can take. They can, contact their,
mm-hmm.
Their member of parliament legislature, and put some pressure on, because I think sometimes that's what it takes. I'm reminded of another reason that we do this walk. I talked about bringing communities together in solidarity, but the solidarity from the outside community, from people from the city, from people who are non-Indigenous, is really essential. And this has been brought home to me by numerous Indigenous people, that if you're asked to come in and support, that you do play an important role, because racism is at play here. There are all kinds of underlying social stigmas and issues here, that if other people will just stand up and say, we're all people, and this is an absolutely horrific way to treat people. How would people feel if they were in that position where their children were living in hotels? And these kids are, if they're going to school in Winnipeg. I heard a figure of 17 youth had committed suicide from St. Martin. Is that true, Meryl?
I don't know if it's youth. I don't know the exact number, but there's been a lot of deaths that have occurred. I don't want to say in the community, because we don't have a community anymore, but the community members of Lake St. Martin.
Maybe that was a combined total of some sort, I heard, but it was Michael Champagne mentioned that total at the Spirit of the Drum event, and he was talking about displaced people from flooding, and I believe he mentioned St. Martin, but he may have been including, some other youth. But I mean, this is an epidemic.
It is. I want to mention something too. We have a campaign going on Facebook. It's we've been asking people to join on Facebook, and it's a petition. We're petitioning. We're petitioning the government to change the situation for Lake St. Martin, and if people can join this campaign on Facebook, what I'll do is I'll send it off to Suzanne, and then maybe Suzanne, you can send it off to your members.
I'll post it on the Boreal Forest Network Facebook page, and also on borealforestnetwork.com. And folks can go there to get the information after won't be immediately after the show, but within the next few days.
And I also want to mention too, we produced a video. The video has been shown locally, regionally, nationally, and internationally as well. The video is called the Lake St. Martin Flooding Hope, the Lake St. Martin First Nation Story, and the video is available on YouTube. So you just have to type in Flooding Hope, and the Lake St. Martin First Nation Story, and and it's a video that that I directed and wrote, and it was shown at the film festivals here in Winnipeg. It was premiered at the Winnipeg Aboriginal Film Festival, as well as the Manitoba Association of Rights and Liberties Film Festival about a month ago.
Mm-hmm. And on World Water Day as well.
Yes. So if people want to view that video, plus we have copies of the video available as well for sale if people want to use it as a resource in their communities or workplaces, wherever.
If you could bring some copies to the walk, that would be great. Maybe folks could pick them up there. And we do have a big sort of reception, gathering, feast at Thunderbird House after, and maybe you could bring some copies of the DVD for folks to purchase there if they'd like to.
Sure.
Or we can view...
and we might be able to show it too, yeah, I was just thinking that.
Yeah.
You can watch it at Thunderbird House? Is that what you were
Mm-hmm.
thinking?
Yeah, we can view it there if, during our feasting or, or after. I think for myself, and knowing this tragedy that still continues in First Nations communities and knowing the irresponsibility of the governments, I know that we need allies to call them to task and to know that, these people didn't choose to be homeless, that the government did this, and they have to be responsible, and making sure and ensuring that they have a community, I can't imagine not having a community. I can't imagine not going to school. I can't imagine all these things that these people are going through. So I'm hoping that, the government will take responsibility and give them what they want, a land base.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And when we started developing the video, when we started videotaping the people, we had an elders workshop, and to listen to the elders cry from your community is really something else. Every one of those elders cried. They cried, and we had about a room full of about 50, 60 elders, and each one of them took turns to share their stories of what they were feeling, and the impact of the flood on their lives. And each one of them cried. There's a few elders that were just trying to hold back their tears. You could just see the emotions, the body language. It was so hard to listen to them.
It's hard for people to imagine, this type of occurrence, this being displaced, being homeless. It's, it's what we would like to think is a rare thing, and the fact it's dragged on for 2 years is pretty astounding. And I'm not surprised the suicide rates and death have gone up. It's a horrible, depressing position to be in. And is there hope? Like, right now for the community, is there some kind of hope that you guys are sort of grabbing onto? Or is it more like we're going in fighting now?
It's really hard to say because the community is so scattered. When the flood started, the first year, people were right there fighting, demonstrating, protests. But the people are getting tired. They're stressed. People are getting depressed over the situation. They don't know what to do anymore. They don't know how to deal with it. And there's a lot of sickness for myself. My family members are getting sick. There's a few family members that are very close to me that have cancer, and these are young family members. When people are when people are stressed, your body reacts in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Your immune system starts to break down, and people are getting sick.
They need all the strength they have to fight their illness, and this added stress and displacement is certainly not helping. It's 8:30. We generally have a little short break here. You're listening to Say It Sista on CKUW 95.9 FM. And Merle, I'd like to thank you for coming in.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much, Merle. We're looking forward to hearing more from you on Sunday.
And also from you, Suzanne, for the upcoming women's gathering also, and I'm excited about the Earth Day, we call it, but I think every day should be Earth Day.
Well, that's exactly why we reclaimed that event. We used to protest it, and then we decided, well, heck, we'll just have our own event.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I'm going to be taking a few elders to the women's gathering. I'll be taking some of the elders that were in the video, so they're excited about it.
Well, great. Okay.
Awesome.
Well, we'll say goodbye to Merle. Thanks again. And we're back in studio with Chickadee and myself, and I believe Suzanne's still on the phone.
I'm still here.
Okay, great. When we left off, of course, we were speaking to Merle. Pretty sad story with her community's displacement, and things haven't really been moving along at all. And Suzanne brought up that this is a good opportunity for people to be a little more aware of what's going on and take some action. Talk to your MLA, talk to your MP, send a letter, make a phone call, and let the government know that we citizens are aware of what's happening and we're not happy.
For sure. And I think a lot of times we're a little passive in hearing that, the social media out there or the media's out there are not giving much attention to this. I can't imagine, like the millions of dollars that they're putting into housing these people in hotel rooms and feeding them, when these millions could be put into creating a land base and homes for them. I mean, that would be the investment. Like let's say they're in the like a place they can invest into the homes for these people, and that these kids could have a community and that they could go to school, and there wouldn't be such the sicknesses that are occurring or the suicide that's occurring. These all could be preventable.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It's a golden opportunity to start from the ground up, get that infrastructure in there, get that water system, get that sewer system. They've, I don't like to call it a waste, but they've spent, millions of dollars housing these people, which conceivably, considering that the community has chosen a place they feel they could stay.
Well, it makes me wonder why the government is reluctant to move them to that location that they want. Like, what is that going to do to impede their plans for resource development or, some corporate interests? Or you have to wonder why a decision like that would be made. Clearly, there's, my guess would be that there's some vested interest in the land that the people want to move to.
Well, I think you're right. There was quite a large write-up in yesterday's Free Press regarding settlement between Ottawa and Manitoba and Lake Saskatchewan First Nations. And in fact, the radar-based houses from Gibsonville are now going to Lake Saskatchewan First Nations as opposed to the Lake St. Martin's Nations. I guess because Lakes or First Nations, Little Saskatchewan First Nations agreed to do this, but part of the deal does have strings attached with the creation of what they're calling a new reserve, including mineral rights and third-party access and interest to the land.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's part of the holdup for Lake St. Martin is wisely, they want to have control over that land.
Well, what we've seen happen many times in cases where, reserves have been relocated is that they're relocated to land of lesser quality frequently, and, there's a reason for that.
Yes, there is, and the quality of the land is not very good either. Like my reserve is situated by marsh. Pegwis is situated by marshlands. Like these are all desolate and places where we can't really flourish in anything, other than see the floods happen every year. Taking away more of our land.
You're listening to Say It Sista, CKUW 95.9 FM. Today we're talking, there's a couple of topics. We're talking about Lake St. Martin. Earlier in the show, we had Merle Ballard on, one of the displaced people. She's created a video, illustrating the plight of these folks, and we're encouraging people to learn more about it and become more active. And another thing we're talking about is the 7th Generation Walk for Mother Earth, 10th annual, which is happening Sunday. Suzanne and Chickadee are both, would you call yourselves founding members of the walk?
Oh, that's as good a description as any. We've been holding the fort for 10 years, definitely. Mm-hmm. This is our 10th anniversary, and I think it's a pretty significant year, also because we were founded the same year as the logging blockade in Grassy Narrows started. So, we have a resurgence of interest right now in supporting Indigenous people's issues and with Idle No More. And I just want to acknowledge that the women like Chickadee and Judy De Silva and Benny Maud and the other women that, have been active on these issues for as long as I've known them, which has been quite a long time now. And, these women have never been idle, and we want to recognize that and honor them for that work.
Oh, thank you, Suzanne. And I think I want to also mention that, you've been a great ally and listening and doing the work that we need to do as human beings, I guess, as sisters, as women, bring forth these issues. I'm excited to see this celebration, and I know, like I said earlier, every day is Earth Day to us, and but to bring it at another level, and celebrating and making, the awareness. It's a daily thing for us. It's not something that we do once a year, but to know that we did this walk, and there's people out there walking in support of the land, of the waters, and making sure that that people are going to be watching and listening to what they're doing. Their walk is not just a walk. It's to bring their attention to what is happening out there, to the lands and to the waters, and the devastation, the exploitation and the poisoning of the waters.
Thanks. When I know that the history of the walk is involved with different organizations, but maybe, Suzanne, could you tell us some of the history of the organizations? Like,
Sure.
I don't think a lot of people really understand what the Grassy Narrows blockade is about. Not to mention that most Winnipeggers, for example, don't have a clue that this is a 10-year blockade still going on. So maybe you could fill us in a little bit about that.
Sure. Going back to before the blockade started, it was quite obvious that the logging was not sustainable there. It was obvious to the people who lived there. In fact, Judy De Silva was saying, I can't just sit back and watch these big trucks of logs go past my house, with my children watching and do nothing. The kids need to see the adults stepping up and doing something about it. And it wasn't, in the end, it was the younger people, the youth, the young women, and youth that actually dropped logs across the road at Slant Lake to prevent the logging trucks from getting in there. Now, it was always kind of a symbolic blockade because the trucks could still go around the long way, all the way up and take a number more hours to get into some areas that they wanted to log. There's no way that we could have, blocked every road. But once those first logs went down, a lot of supporters came out and wanted to make sure that there were observers there so that, there wasn't going to be violence out in the middle of the bush where no one could see. But one of the most significant things that the community did was they took a stand off the reserve. Mm-hmm. And the blockade site is not on the reserve. It's in Grassy Narrows traditional territory, and it's on Slant Road. It's still there. And the idea is to eventually have like a permanent building there, and an education center, and that sort of thing. So, kids were going to classes in the roundhouse there. There were youth gatherings. We had a powwow there. I mean, there's stuff that's been going on there for 10 years, and that is pretty significant to be able to take that step and to stick to it, and not be intimidated, and back down. So. It is about the logging, and at the time it was about Abitibi, which was the company that had the logging rights there at the time. Abitibi pulled out of there largely because the market was not good for their product, but now we're fighting an organization, a company called Wire Hazard Forest Products, which is in their cutting, and they're estimated to be probably less than 30% of the original forested land there, and more is being taken out of there every single day. So, it's the last stand, really, in Grassy Narrows. And these people have been affected by mercury poisoning from a pulp mill up in Dryden area, over decades. It's not there now, but people are still suffering from the mercury. Mm-hmm. So, there've been a lot of impacts in this community and in many, many other communities as well. But, in Grassy, this is where the stand has been, very, very strong. So the women asked myself and the late Dave Brophy, who was just a really terrific guy, to help support their vision of this walk, this sacred walk, by creating a welcoming committee in Winnipeg and hosting a rally and a gathering and some celebrating too here. And we had always protested Earth Day, as Chickadee said, Earth Day is supposed to be every day. We do this every day of our lives. We kind of took exception to the corporate Earth Day where like McDonald's and other, big companies would come out once a year and, go rah-rah for the earth and, big McDonald's golden arches at the forks and things like that.
Basically trash it the rest of the time.
Oh, yeah. We've done various things like we did a funeral procession through the Earth Day event at the Forks, where we ended up back down at the doing a funeral for the river. And
I remember that.
You remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that one.
That was with Eva Pipp, and she's a professor and knows lots about water quality and so on. And but we've done all kinds of banner droppings and things like that. And I always used to say, well, once a year, I'm going to go out in a big gas guzzling car and throw my, pop bottles out the window, once a year, because, it just seems so ridiculous. But, but to reclaim it is important. And like Chickadee says, it brings attention to an issue at a time when people are thinking about it. The media wants to cover stories about Earth Day. And, so some of our thinking was, well, instead of these pseudo Earth Day events getting all the attention, maybe it's best if we try to get a harsh message out on a sort of soft, feel-good day. And, so the reporters come out thinking that you're going to, talk about, I don't know, fairly non-controversial things. And we get messages in, the news like, environmental justice, not environmental racism, and that's a message you'd never get out on any other day of the week, or rarely.
No,
it's not popular, and people don't want to be reminded of the ugliness, but because the world's attention is on it at that time, it gives us an opportunity to maybe bring our message a little bit more into the mainstream.
Yeah.
And it's also a celebration. We do a lot of protesting and all that kind of thing, and I think what people really need now is a vision more than to see a picture of another oil spill. Although there's been recent oil spills in Manitoba, and a lot of people aren't familiar with that. But So there are things we still need to bring out in the open, but we need to have an alternative vision for what we want, because I think people really know there's a lot of problems out there, but they've got this tunnel vision about even dealing with it because they can't imagine what else they're going to do. How is it going to be better for them and all of us? So I think we have a role to play in terms of not just pointing out the problems, but also getting together and celebrating what we do have.
And also, I guess, finding the solutions together, because this environment is for all. It's not just, for Indigenous people. And a lot of times people are saying, like, why are they walking? Why are they doing this? Why are they protesting? Or, I think we have a deeper understanding and a connection to the earth, and and then that brings me to, the women's gathering that's coming. Suzanne, can you just give us a little insight into this gathering?
Yes, I think that's a perfect segue into talking about the women's gathering. The women's gathering is really about a vision of a different kind of sort of society that we could create. And, when you say that the Indigenous people of this land are closer to the land, it's very true. But it's been, generation after generation. I mean, in some cases, more than 300 years since some of the people of other nations have had that connection to the land and had that, that way of living on the land. And so what the women's gathering is about is we thought it was going to be maybe 200-300 people in the Whitechell, in the sacred site known as Manitowabe, which is where the Creator sits. It's a sacred site of the people of this land, Anishinaabe people. And a woman had, Diane Maytaway-Ashing, who's been on the show before talking about this, had the vision to bring women together, that this is the women's time, and that prophecies of a lot of different cultures say that this is the women's time, and for the women to, to take their responsibility for the water and for restoring, some kind of sanity, I guess you want to call it, in terms of restoring the clan systems and, more of a tribal way of living together on the land. And so we put the word out, and we've had response from over 700 women from all over North America who are coming to gather at this site on May 23rd to 26th. The sessions that we have prepared, span a lot of different subjects, but they're all being conducted by women, for women. Men will be coming to help support in a support role to, do some work in the kitchen and be firekeepers for us, and give the boys an example of how men can work in a community with women, and shift the paradigm because the women have really, a big responsibility, I think, at this time in our history to take the responsibility back for the land and for the water. So this is quite an exciting event and quite an exciting time, and I think it is an indication that people are ready for a change, and that we want to start focusing on that change and not just be stuck in the problem.
So if people are interested in finding out more about this, do we have a website going for this event?
There is some information on borealforestnetwork.com, and there will be more as the schedule and so on are finalized in the next, week probably. We're asking people, it's a free event, but we are asking people to pitch in donations to make it possible for those who, basically for us to make it a free event and for everyone to be able to attend. We have some expenses. We have a lot more people coming than we thought we were going to have. So, of course, we have, things like we've got to provide porta potties, and, we have to bring enough food to make sure everyone's fed and all of that kind of stuff. So we've found ways to keep the cost as minimal as possible. And, of course, we're not paying to go to the land to do this camping, because this is like an area where Indigenous people and women in particular have every right to go and conduct ceremonies. There'll be a full moon ceremony and sharings about cultural and spiritual issues and ceremonies. And I think it's the first time that we've ever had an event like this that includes women of all nations coming together for sacred purpose. And We will have morning sunrise ceremonies from each nation. So, it's a really participatory event where, the women who come will all be welcomed into a really supportive community.
And I think it's also, bringing the balance back the way that it should be. That history has covered up the fact that we were a matriarch society before, and I think it's time overdue that we bring the truth out and doing what we're doing. Every indigenous people, there was women who were in a position of council, I guess, leading and making decisions on behalf of their nations. And I believe the non-indigenous nations had that too. So
yes,
and going back, to this, we're creating solutions, and doing this gathering. We're not just sitting back and wanting society to, continue the devastation that's happening on the earth, but also the way that they look at women as whole, as non-participatory people in society, where a lot of men are making decisions which are not very good decisions. I'm not a man hater, but knowing as a mother how, I would like, to ensure that, as a mother, make sure that my children are going to have clean drinking water, for instance, eh?
Mm-hmm.
So all of this it's all of ours, and that's what I really like about the gathering. It's very inclusive, and it's all of us trying to, be part of that solution.
Well, I guess it's getting pretty obvious to us gals out there that things are not going right. We can't sit back any longer and just watch the world, get completely destroyed. Maybe because we bear the children and have that long foresight of imagining our children's lives and in the future, it's moved, and I know that this is an important time, and I'm not surprised it's happening now, because people are waking up, and it's moved us to a point where something's got to change. So I'm really looking forward. I know I've said it before, but I'm totally pumped about the gathering. We've only got 1 minute left, so I just want to remind folks about the 10th annual 7th Generation Walk for Mother Earth. The theme, of course, Voices of Indigenous Women and solidarity with them. This is Sunday, April 21st, coming right up. Central Park, downtown there, from 12:30 till 2. There will be speakers, and the parade or walk starts at Edmonton and Portage at 2:15.